Welcome to the first Residential College in the Arts and Humanities celebration for our graduates. I'm welcoming you. There'll be many more people to come after I speak. I know you're going to enjoy this evening. Let me begin. On May 7th, 2011, we held commencement for the first RCAH graduating class, who began as first-year students in ARCA in fall 2007. We held commencement live in Morton Center on Saturday night at 7 p.m. I don't think we thought having a live commencement was particularly noteworthy. What a difference a decade makes. We've weathered many changes in that decade, including the highs and lows of presidential politics, both nationally and on college campuses. Now, a pandemic is forcing us to rethink how we learn, how we teach, and how we create new knowledge, and how we collaborate with our community partners as well as classmates and colleagues. But COVID-19 has not stopped you from rounding the bases any more than the Great Recession of 2008 stopped that first intrepid ARCA class of 2011. You're leaving ARCA prepared for a life of imagination, candor, passion, and goodwill. Back on May 7th, 2011, Professor Anita Skeen wrote this poem to the first graduating class at their commencement. It has the same heartfelt ring of truth today that it had then. It was entitled The Art of Leaving. You came at dawn. It's getting on towards noon. We've just had time to learn your names and faces. How can you think of leaving us so soon? You made us snakes and left us Appalachian tunes. You wrote about extraordinary places. You came at dawn. It can't be much past noon. Look at your watch. It's long before the moon will rise. Are you sure you rounded all the bases? How can you think of leaving us so soon? You chased white whales with Ahab, drew cartoons, studied empires, lived transculturation. You came at dawn, and it's now mid-afternoon. You came at dawn, and now it's long past noon. Go where you need to go, but write home soon. As the many ARCA alumni before you, we know that you will go where you need to go and stay in touch. On behalf of the faculty and staff of ARCA, thank you in advance for the life you will lead, the stories you will tell, and the kindness that you will bring into the world. We need you now more than ever. I'm so pleased to welcome you to this celebration.
It seems a somewhat oxymoronic thing for me to be standing here giving a commencement speech, commencement meaning a beginning, when in just a few days I will be ending my 52 career as a college professor. While I am ending my career, you are just beginning yours. There's a symmetry here that I like, though, the two sides of a teeter-totter, me on my way down, you on your way up. I promise not to jump off, as my friends often did, and send you crashing to the playground dirt. Mentors don't do that. Both you and I are completing major stages in our lives. As a result, we both have stories to tell about these times. The years we spent in academia, the friends we made, the values we learned, the mentors who taught us. Some of these stories we've shared many times, with laughter and tears. Others are very personal, perhaps told only to ourselves. These stories are ones that connect us in the present and in the future. One of my mentors, the Pulitzer Prize-winning poet Liesl Mueller, who passed away this February at the age of 96, understood the power of stories in our lives. Here is one of her poems, Why We Tell Stories. Because we used to have leaves, and on damp days, our muscles feel a tug, painful now, from when roots pulled us into the ground. And because our children believe they can fly, an instinct retained from when the bones in our arms were shaped like zithers and broke neatly under their feathers. And because before we had lungs, we knew how far it was to the bottom as we floated open-eyed like painted scarves through the scenery of dreams. And because we awakened and learned to speak, too. We sat by the fire in our caves, and because we were poor, we made up a tale about a treasure mountain that would open only for us. And because we were always defeated, we invented impossible riddles only we could solve, monsters only we could kill, women who could love no one else. And because we had survived sisters and brothers, daughters and sons, we discovered bones that rose from the dark earth and sang like white birds in the trees. 3. Because the story of our life becomes our life, because each of us tells the same story but tells it differently, and none of us tells it the same way twice. Because grandmothers looking like spiders want to enchant the children, and grandfathers need to convince us what happened because of them. And though we listen only haphazardly with one ear, we will begin our story with the word "and." Stories, that's all we are, says the Canadian writer Thomas King. When I was a child, I don't recall anyone ever asking me what I wanted to be when I grew up. Someone must have at some point, but obviously it was not memorable. Looking back on those years of skinned knees and infinite possibilities, I don't know how I responded. Fighter pilot, astronomer, and coal miner were out because I was a girl. Texas Ranger, Viking explorer, Army Scout were out too because, well, they were history, and history, I thought then, was in the past. Nurse, school teacher, legal secretary, housewife. Those were things women grew up to be in the 1950s, and though I knew girls grew into women, I couldn't imagine myself growing up to be one of those creatures who wore nylon stockings, girdles, pillbox hats, and they carried a purse. So like Peter Pan, I planned not to grow up. I didn't want to be X or Y. I just wanted to be outside in the woods, inside of a book, up in a tree, down by the river, off with my dog. In retrospect, I see that this simply wanting to be is, in some ways, describing the life of the poet. Poets be. Archibald MacLeish, in his famous poem Ars Poetica, writes, "A poem should not mean, but be." The same could be said for many poets. They also want to be. To be in the actual physical world and in the world of language. To be given the space and time to transform experience to text. To be a voice to which others listen as they make their own meaning. If someone did ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I'm 100% drop-dead, knockdown sure that I didn't answer a poet. But I did become a poet, and then I became a teacher of poets. In a similar vein, I don't know when I first became aware of the number of other people who felt they had unwritten poems dwelling inside them, that they had experiences that they called feelings to share, unique perspectives to offer. This, however, was not something they often were likely to talk about in public. I did hear on a number of occasions the man standing beside me with a drink in his hand say, "When I write my novel," or the woman sitting beside me in a committee meeting taking notes offer, "When I write my memoirs." These people were not writers by profession, but lawyers, doctors, legislative representatives, teachers, and social workers. I don't recall hearing anyone say, "When I write my collection of poems." What did these people do with the impulse to explore language, to let the language of poetry take hold of their experiences and transform them into art? Many kept journals, some took photographs, others listened to music that tapped into personal and private space. They had come to the same realization as the speaker of James Wright's poem, lying in a hammock at William Duffy's farm in Pine Island, Minnesota. There was much around them to observe. There was a world to be in, and not to take notice was to risk wasting their lives. Here's James Wright's poem. Over my head, I see the bronze butterfly asleep on the black trunk, blowing like a leaf in green shadow. Down the ravine, beyond the empty house, the cowbells follow one another into the distance of the afternoon. To my right, in a field of sunlight between two pines, the droppings of last year's horses blaze up like golden stones. I lean back as the evening darkens and comes on. A chicken hawk floats over, looking for home. I have wasted my life. Again, to be still, to be attentive, to savor the moment, to understand that we are mortal. This is the task of our adult lives, and it's harder than you think. I tell the students in my poetry classes that if they are to be poets, they must be attentive, they must notice, they must listen. If we are ever to be fully engaged in the world around us, poets or politicians, pastors or patriots, we must do these things. We must learn to love the small things of the world, but first we must notice them. The poet Kim Blazer says as much in her poem, "The way we love something small." The translucent claws of newborn mice, the pearl cast of color, the barely perceptible, like a ghosted threshold of being. Here, not here. The single breath we hold on the thinnest verge of sight. There, not here, there. A curve nearly naked, an arc, almost a wisp of becoming, a wand, tiny enough to change me. Tiny enough to change me. To be changed by these tiny things, we must first notice them. They occur in all of our professions and disciplines, our family encounters, our experiences with friends. For me, it has been the poets who have written about these things when I turn to them in times of stress and loss and darkness. You are moving out into your professional lives in a very uncertain and very dark time. You are coming into a world forever changed by the COVID-19 virus, and you will have to learn how to adapt. The writer Bertolt Brecht wrote in a poem, "In the dark times, will there be singing? Yes, there will be singing about the dark times." In an address to the Yale Political Union on April 23, 2013, Mina Alexander, Distinguished Professor of English at Hunter College and the CUNY Graduate Center in the PhD program in English, ended her talk with a poem, and these were the final lines. "We have poetry, so we do not die of history." We have poetry, so we do not die of history. We must sing in the dark times. We must sing about the dark times. Singing is accomplished in many ways. I want to leave you with 4 ways I believe you can sing. 1, don't forget the friends you've made in these college years. They will remain among the best friends of your lives. I know. Some of the sorority sisters I met at Concord College in Athens, West Virginia in 1964 remain among my best friends. Carol, the artist who lives in Baltimore. JB, the writer who lives in Cincinnati. Karen, the elementary school teacher who lives in Sandusky. And from graduate school, Peggy, who lives in the mountains of Virginia in an 1840s log cabin she had moved to her property from southern West Virginia. And finally, Emily, former editor of Equus magazine, who lives in Maryland and has become the local historian for Cecil County. We have stayed connected. We have a history. We have helped each other sing through the dark times. 2, don't forget where you come from. As folks where I grew up would say, don't get above your raisin. Charles Wright says it much better than I can in his poem, Appalachian Farewell. Help us never to get above our raising. Help us to hold hard to what was there. And Georgella Lyon, too, in her poem, Where I'm From, which many of you have probably used as a model for your own poems. I am from clothespins, from Clorox and carbon tetrachloride. I am from dirt under the back porch, black, glistening. It tasted like beets. I am from the forsythia bush, the Dutch elm, whose long gone limbs I remember as if they were my own. Where are you from? Not Midland, Michigan, or Chicago, Illinois, or Big Chimney, West Virginia. Not the geography, but the elements of your daily lives. The things that made you, you. Remember Tom Sawyer, read to you by your 6th grade teacher? The hymns you sang, standing by your grandmother at the revival meeting? Your dog, hit by a car, you carried home for a mile. The things that formed your character, the things that got you through the dark times. Sing gratefully about your past, about where you're from. 3, don't forget your values, the ones you brought to the RCAH, the ones you discovered while you were here, the ones you sat around in your dorm room until 3 a.m. in the morning debating, the ones that caused you struggle, the ones that made you proud, the ones that got you through the dark times. Those times are upon us. You need those values in your back pocket. Each one is a song. 4, do not forget your mentors, the professors, the staff, the leaders, the writers, the artists who helped you on your way. We have done this for you so that you may do it for others. Keep the ball rolling. I owe it to James Shrewsbury, professor of English at Concord College, Professor P.J. Wyatt, linguist and folklorist at Wichita State, Margaret Atwood, my teacher, Lisa Mueller and Carolyn Forche, my friends. To tell you this, those of you who know me would be sadly disappointed, I think, if I did not find a way to work Harry Potter into this talk. Perhaps I have saved the best for last. Albus Dumbledore, headmaster of Hogwarts School of Wizardry and Witchcraft, served as a mentor for many of his students, most notably Harry Potter, and to many of us who lived in the pages of the Harry Potter saga. Dumbledore has words for us about the dark times. In Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, he says, "Dark times lie ahead of us, and there will be a time when we must choose between what is easy and what is right." Because you are graduates of the RCAH, when it comes time for you to make that choice, I have no doubt you will choose what is right. You will choose what is right because you have been mentored by teachers like Professor Aronoff and Moby Dick, Professor Esquith and the Mali Peace Game, Professor Monberg and Community Memory, Professor Delgado and Poetry in the Prisons, Professor Torres and Latino Youth, Professor Brooks and Civic Engagement, Professor Minor and Indigenous Rights, Professor Scales and Appalachian Song, Professor Skeen and the wisdom of Albus Dumbledore, who said, "It is our choices that show who we truly are, far more than our abilities." You have stories to tell and songs to sing. You have history to make, and you have lives to change. I hope you have poems to read and write. I hope you listen more than haphazardly, and with both ears, to the large and small miracles of the world. Then connect the story of your lives to others and begin with the word "and." Thank you.
Hello, graduating class of 2020. My name is Ale, and guess what? Today is the day that we finally get to celebrate all of the hard work that we've been putting in for about the last 4-ish years. I don't know about you, but time seems to have flown by and also moved in slow motion. We've learned, laughed, cried, created, organized, impacted the lives of others, and above all, discovered the things we're truly passionate about. We are the examples of the change we want to see in the world. And this was all made possible by this wonderful college we all know and love. ARCA is what I like to call the little engine that could. We may be small, but the impact reaches places from MSU to Costa Rica. And that's the thing that makes being here so rewarding. The fun doesn't stop there though. So graduates, being that we're all seasoned veterans now, you know that we have a very unique way of operating in ARCA. After a couple semesters, you tend to know everyone. Don't believe me? Think back to our freshman year when we all had at least one class together. Now think back over to all the classes you've taken since then and how there's always a familiar face. Or think back to past ARCA events. I guarantee you knew at least 2 people, if not all of them. We've created a family here, and that notion extends to the faculty and staff. I don't know about you, but I hope that I'm not alone when I say that if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here. When embarking on a journey, things look scary and feel isolating, but all that changes when you find community. And I can confidently say that I found that in ARCA and will truly miss this feeling. Now, let's take a trip down memory lane. Starting with ALP, I remember meeting Nikki for the first time. She asked everyone their name and helped us make our schedules. Now fast forward a couple weeks to move in, and I saw Nikki again. She remembered my name, and not only that, she remembered everyone's name. As a freshman at this university, that was a big deal for me. Now my next memory, a little bit funnier, is from my 111 class with Professor Aronoff. We all know this course as the Moby Dick class. As much as we loved reading the classics, we also loved having so much fun. And so as a class, we decided to make a bingo game. We based the whole thing on Professor Aronoff, and yes, we secretly played it during class. I can't forget the time I got to interview the famous Dean Steve. Fun fact, his favorite food is cold fruit soup, unless things have changed. Speaking of food, if you've had Professor Torres, then you know all about her love for baking and breaking bread with her classes. From unforgettable Wednesday night lives like climbing poetry and the annual student showcases, I could go on, but these are just a few of the moments that made my experience here at MSU unforgettable. In ARCA, we weren't just a number, but people with lives and intersecting experiences. We were active participants in our learning. As Dr. Brooks would say, we are all leaders in this room. The knowledge that you bring to the table is valid and necessary to create change. Though we may be students, we are teachers too. I encourage you today to look at all the things that you've learned here in ARCA and find a way to take that into the spaces you'll inhabit. Then you will be the example. In ARCA, change lives here, but it also lives in each and every one of us. Congratulations, graduates of 2020. I wish you nothing but the best. Peace.
to start off by saying that I wrote my graduation speech weeks before any of the changes were implemented due to the COVID-19 crisis, but I wanted to keep my graduation speech as authentic and realistic as I could to what I think I would give if we were walking across the stage at Wharton Center, just because I feel like we need some normalcy in our lives right now. A lot of us pictured our graduation going very differently than it will in reality, so I just wanted to keep it pretty true and authentic so we could experience it the way we envisioned or the way that we needed it to. Good afternoon, friends, family, faculty, and my fellow graduates. I want each of us to take this opening minute to close our eyes and reflect. I want those who are here supporting to think about how it feels to sit in your chair, to know that you are witnessing an important moment in the lives of those you care about. I want the faculty to think about how gratifying and emotional it is to watch your students graduate, possessing the knowledge that you instilled in their minds. I want my fellow graduates to think about how it feels to be here, in this moment. Do you feel overwhelmed? Are you excited? Are you scared? Are you sad? Every feeling is valid, and we are feeling it together. Feel everything. Take a deep breath. Today is a day I never thought would come. Today is a day we have all overcome many adversities to get to. Today is a day that we can celebrate those struggles rather than worry about them. Here we are. If you haven't already, open your eyes and look around you. Take in your surroundings. Since we cannot be together in a physical space, think about your fellow classmates. Maybe the people that come to mind do not have someone supporting them, but they do have us, a body of individuals who love and appreciate their thoughts, knowledge, and contributions to this program, as well as their individual college experience. I know for me, each of you has taught me something, directly or indirectly. Each of you has played a role in establishing and creating the program I am proud to graduate from today. For each of us, our college experience has been different, a true test of balance and perseverance. Some of us took longer than others. Some of us had to work one or multiple jobs in order to pay for our classes. Some of us are suffering from personal hardships. Some of us are fearful of walking this campus every day with the state this country is in. College is sort of like a microcosm of the world. For some of us, college was our first exposure to the validation of our identities, while for others, the students and administration here at Michigan State ignored and exploited our identities. It is stated that college is the time when you learn most about yourself, which I found to be true. However, more importantly, I think my time here at Michigan State has educated me about the necessary and vital changes I'd like to fight for in this world. Michigan State is an institution that possesses many broken beliefs, policies, and individuals, but we are striving to make change. In college and in the world, I believe that's all we need. For people to strive to be and do better. Here in the Residential College of Arts and Humanities, I have found acceptance. I feel that my voice is always heard, and I am given the platform to make a change, something the world so desperately needs. I have found a safe haven here in our college because I have found like minds, and I hope you have too. In many ways, my time in college has been different than I imagined it would be. At 18 years old, I was diagnosed with a chronic illness, Crohn's disease, the summer going into my freshman year of college. Instead of attending college orientations or walking the college campuses on a guided tour, I was confined to a hospital room. Over the past 7 years, I have endured 4 life-saving surgeries, countless procedures, and numerous hospital stays, filled with IV pokes, infusions, tears, hugs, and plenty of lemon sorbet, no-bake cookies, and apple pie, my dad's favorites. On my first day of college, instead of simply battling the typical nerves and excitement, I found myself anxious about a lowered grade due to attendance policies that I may not be able to adhere to, or numerous other rules that didn't cater to a student like me. I found myself being the 23, 24, or 25-year-old in a classroom instead of 18, 19, 20, or 21. I found myself having to constantly defend my college experience to the people around me. I often felt inadequate. Even though I knew my experiences and perspectives were important, it was all too easy to doubt myself. I know I am not the only one who has faced challenges. Not everyone in this room experienced college in an idealistic way, the way they always dreamed about, or the way we see it in movies. In fact, I bet no one did. I share my story today not for pity or pride, but rather in the hopes that someone listening needed to hear it. I share my story in solidarity with you all because we're in this together. Everyone's perspective is unique. Each one of us has seen, heard, and experienced the world differently. Our perspectives are what make our contributions to this world so important, necessary even, because nobody can do exactly what you can do. We are told that each of us has the capability to make great change, impactful differences. I do believe this is true, but it's not that simple. Some of us, due to our various identities, will not be given the same opportunities as others to make change. There are so many systems in our society that exclude and oppress marginalized groups, and we can't ignore this fact. But no change is too small, and any change can be impactful. I want my fellow graduates to think about a change you have witnessed, supported, facilitated, or created in our college experience. How did it feel? Making change is something that is accessible to all of us because it is all around us. Change is as valuable as it is inevitable. If I have learned anything from my time here at Michigan State, it is that the words on a protest sign, the passion of a live poetry reading, the creativity and uniqueness of a piece of art, or a smile and a hug from a student you have mentored can create great change within a person. I know it has changed me. Consider college a trial run, and as you move forward, you are being cheered on by your biggest fans. The world may not be ready, but they need us. Take a deep breath. You are ready. Thank you, and congratulations to the class of 2020.